Hello, scholars. Welcome to our Unit 1, Lesson 9 and 10 review, which is all about equivalent fractions and decimals. Our aim for Unit 1, Lesson 9 is scholars will be able to convert between fractions greater than 1 and mixed numbers. And our key point for this lesson is fractions greater than 1 and mixed numbers can represent equivalent values. So, for example, let's say I have a fraction like 14 over 5. Since the numerator is greater than the denominator, this is an example of a fraction greater than 1, and I could turn this into a mixed number. And another thing to think about here is that this is the same thing as 14 divided by 5. So I can do some division right over here to help me find my mixed number, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and show the connection on how the numbers we get here can create our mixed number. So 5 goes into 14 2 times. So I put a 2 right on top of the 14. That's going to represent the whole number. And this also means that because this 5 represents how many parts there are in each whole, that means that we can go ahead and create 2 out of those 5. But now we have some left over, right? We have 4. So that's actually what we're going to see is going to be the remainder over here. When I go ahead and subtract, 5 times 2 is 10. And 14 minus 10 is 4. And that's going to be the remainder. And that's what we put in the numerator. Okay, that's how many parts are left. And then the denominator is going to stay the same because even though we're turning this into a mixed number, it's still parts out of 5. Going over to our next aim for Unit 1, Lesson 10, that was scholars will be able to identify and generate equivalent fractions and decimal fractions. And our conjecture for this lesson is fractions with powers of 10 in the denominator can be written as decimal fractions using place value. So for this example, I'm going to go kind of the reverse of that. So if I have a decimal written out like this, this means 0 and 2/10. And actually, let me go ahead and do 0 and 200ths instead. Okay, that's a little bit more challenging. So if we look over here at this place value chart, that means our denominator is going to have a 100 underneath. Okay, so I'll put the 2 in the numerator, and this is going to be out of 100. Now I wanted to do this so we could go ahead and practice creating a fraction, an equivalent fraction in simplest form. So we can go ahead and divide here. And again, always try to divide by the smaller of the two numbers, which most of the time in the questions that we work on, it's going to be in the numerator, right? So that 2. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, that's what we could look at first. And if that doesn't work, you start to look for a smaller number. But 2 does work, so I'm going to divide by 2 over 2, which we could do because 2 over 2 is equivalent to 1. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 100 divided by 2 is 50. So these are just a couple of the main points that we'll be working on throughout this lesson.